The first sign was a ripple in space. It wasn't seen by human eyes, but by machines. 1,000 silent alarms went off at observatories and defense stations across the solar system. Near Jupiter, the fabric of reality seemed to fold and twist. Then they came through. Ships, sleek, dark, and shaped like long, cruel thorns, emerged one after another into the silent black. They kept coming, a flood of impossible shadows against the giant planet's stripes, until thousands of them hung in formation. They made no sound. They sent no signals. They just arrived, an audience of silent judges looking toward the inner solar system. On Earth, panic did not happen all at once. First, there was confusion. Then, a slow, cold dread spread through the people who understood what the data meant. The news broke in pieces. Unidentified objects at Jupiter. Then, a fleet. Finally, the terrible. Simple truth. They are not answering. In a buried bunker deep beneath the mountains of South Korea, Lee Dae-hyan watched the main screen. His face was pale under the harsh lights. His eyes, usually sharp, were rimmed with red from lack of sleep. He was the director of this global planetary defense outpost, a title that felt like a bad joke now. His screen showed the fleet's approach, a cloud of red dots moving with a slow, terrifying certainty toward the blue dot of Earth. Any change? He asked, his voice rough. To his right, Choi Yuna shook her head. She was young, an astrophysicist known for finding patterns in cosmic noise. Now her hands moved swiftly over her console, pulling data from every telescope that could still see Jupiter. No communications on any standard frequency. No response to our hails. But they are broadcasting something. Talk to me, Yuna. It's not a voice or a message. It's a dense data packet. Very complex, very powerful. It's repeating on a loop. She brought the signal up on a secondary screen. It was a visual mess of sharp spikes and deep valleys. It's aimed directly at Earth. It's not a greeting. It's a declaration. The main doors to the command center hissed open, and Park Soo-min walked in. She moved with the calm, efficient stride of a soldier. Her uniform was neat, her short black hair perfectly in place. She was a communications officer, but her eyes scanned the room like a battlefield. She stopped beside Dae-hyan's chair. "Sir, the Joint Chiefs are on the secure line. They want options." "What options?" Dae-hyan said, a hint of bitterness in his tone. "Our strongest lasers would be like a flashlight to those ships. Our missiles would not even reach them. Our only option is to hope they are friendly, and they are not acting friendly." On the big screen, a new graphic appeared. It was a countdown overlaid on the solar system map. Based on the fleet's steady speed, it estimated time until they reached Earth's orbit. 72 hours, 72 hours until the end of everything. "The packet," Yuna said suddenly. Her voice was tight. "I've isolated a component. It's a targeting protocol. It's mapping our planetary defenses, our major power grids, our population centers. It's a battle plan." A cold silence filled the bunker. The soft hum of computers was the only sound. "We need to understand it," Dae-hyan said, forcing himself to sit up straight. "If that's all it is, we're finished. But if there is anything else, a flaw, a demand, a reason, we have to find it." He turned to Soo-min. "I need your best codebreakers. Every agency, every expert. Now." Soo-min nodded. "Most are already working on it. The Americans, the Europeans. They're all stuck. The code is like nothing we've ever seen. It's not a language, it's a machine scream." "Then we need someone who doesn't think like a codebreaker," Dae-hyan said. He pulled up a personnel file on his personal screen. The photo showed a man with a kind, thoughtful face and glasses. "We need a linguist." Someone who looks for meaning in patterns, not just breaks ciphers. Get him here. The file read, Kim Jae-won, Professor of Comparative Linguistics, Specialist in Dead and Constructed Languages, currently on leave from Seoul National University. Sir, with all respect, Soo-min said, a linguist? For an alien machine code? We need mathematicians, cryptographers. And they have failed, Dae-hyun said softly. In 72 hours, none of our titles will matter. Bring him in. Kim Jae-won was in his small, book-filled apartment when the soldiers came. He was making tea, listening to a recording of a nearly extinct Amazonian dialect. A sharp knock on his door broke his concentration. He opened it to find Park Soo-min and two stern-looking guards in the hallway. He blinked, pushing his glasses up his nose. Kim Jae-won? Soo-min asked, though it wasn't really a question. Yes? Can I help you? You need to come with us. Immediately. It is a matter of global security. Ji-won's first thought was that it was a mistake. His world was one of verb conjugations and historical syntax, not security. But the look in the officer's eyes told him this was very real. He didn't argue. He grabbed his coat and a small notebook he always carried and followed them. The ride in the armored vehicle was silent. The descent into the mountain in a fast elevator was dizzying. When the doors opened to the buzzing, tense atmosphere of the bunker, Jae-won felt a wave of nausea. Screens showed the alien fleet, the countdown, maps of destruction. Lee Dae-hyun met him. Professor Kim, thank you for coming. I am Lee Dae-hyun. There is no time for pleasantries. Do you know what is happening? Ji-won looked at the main screen, at the swarm of thorn ships. I have seen the news. Those beings have sent a message. A data packet. Our best people cannot understand it. They say it is just noise, just targeting data. I need you to look at it, not as a code, as a message. Is there meaning buried inside? Jae-won was led to a workstation. Choi Yuna brought up the signal. He stared at the chaotic waveform. To the others, it was a weapons schematic. To Jae-won, it was a shape. It had rhythm. It had layers. It's repeating, he murmured, more to himself than anyone. But the repetitions are not perfect. See here and here? He pointed to slight variations in the pattern. This is not a machine error. A perfect machine signal would be clean. This has texture. He forgot about the soldiers, the director, the end of the world. He leaned closer, his linguist's mind engaging. You are right. It is not a language. Not one we know. But the structure. It is nested. Like a story inside a story. The loud, clear part on top is simple. It shouts, but beneath the shout, he trailed off, adjusting his glasses. There is a whisper. Dae-hyun felt a flicker of something he had not felt in days. A thin, fragile strand of hope. Can you hear the whisper, Professor? Jae-won looked up, his eyes meeting the director's weary ones. I don't know. I need time. And I need to hear it not just as data, but as sound. Can you make this into sound? Yuna nodded. We can try to render it into an audio frequency. Then that is what we do, Dae-hyun said. He turned to the room, to the men and women watching the clock tick down. We have our direction. Yuna, give him everything he needs. Soo-min, secure the lab. The world is waiting for a miracle. Let's see if we can find one in a whisper. Outside on the surface, night was falling. People huddled around screens, looking at the sky. The countdown continued. 71 hours. The silent thorns drew closer. And deep underground, one man listened, hoping to find a meaning in the noise of the end. The bunker had become a world of its own, cut off from the sun and the spreading panic above. The air was recycled and cold, smelling of ozone and fear. Kim Jae-won sat in a soundproofed lab, headphones over his ears, his eyes closed. On his screen, the alien data packet was a twisting, jagged mountain range. But through the headphones, it was something else. It was a sound like grinding metal, like deep ice cracking, overlaid with a rhythmic, pulsing beat. It was harsh and ugly. Yet, Jae-won listened past the ugliness. He was looking for music in the machinery. He had asked Choi Yuna to slow the signal down, to stretch it, to filter certain frequencies. The main, aggressive layer was clear. It was a map, a list, a target lock. But beneath it, almost buried, was a slower, subtler pattern. A echo. Park Soo-min stood by the door, her arms crossed. She watched the linguist with a mix of impatience and duty. Her job was to protect him in the project, but she saw a man lost in sound, not a soldier fighting a war. She believed in guns and codes, not whispers and echoes. "Report, Professor," she said, her voice cutting through his concentration. Jae-won jumped slightly, pulling one headphone off. "It's there," he said, his voice quiet from hours of silence. "The whisper. It's not part of the main message. It's underneath it. Like the main signal is talking over it, trying to drown it out." Soo-min walked over, looking at the screen. She saw nothing but lines. "What is it saying?" "I don't know what it's saying yet, but I know how it's speaking. The top layer is direct, imperative. It is a command. This whisper, it is declarative. It is a statement of fact. And it is old. The rhythm is inconsistent in a way that suggests degradation, like a recording played too many times. The main signal is clean, new. This whisper is a ghost." He rubbed his tired eyes. "I need to separate them. I need to isolate this ghost from the machine shouting over it." He turned back to his console, typing swiftly. He was not a programmer, but his mind worked in structures and rules. He began creating a digital filter, trying to build a wall that would block the loud, pounding frequencies of the targeting data and let only the softer, older echo pass through. He failed several times, getting only silence or noise. Soo-min watched him fail. She saw his shoulders slump. Part of her wanted to say this was a waste of time, but she had her orders. And she saw something else, a determination in his focus that was different from a soldier's, but just as intense. "What do you need?" she asked, the pragmatism in her voice shifting from challenge to offer. Jae-won looked up, surprised. "Processing power. More than this terminal has. The signal is incredibly dense. To filter it in real time, to model the layers. I need access to the main array." Soo-min didn't hesitate. She picked up a secure phone. "This is Officer Park. Authorize full priority processing for Station 7. My authorization. Route all available capacity from the secondary analysis banks." She listened for a moment, then said, "I don't care if it interrupts their models. Do it." Within minutes, J1's terminal flickered, and a new prompt appeared, showing a massive spike in available power. He gave Soo-min a grateful nod and went back to work. Hours bled together. In the command center, Lee Dae-hyan moved from station to station, a cup of cold coffee in his hand. The news from above was terrible. Cities were in chaos. Some governments were talking about firing all their missiles in a final symbolic act of defiance. The countdown read 48 hours. Choi Yuna was monitoring the fleet. Her face was pale. "Director," she called out, "the Velen are active. They're not just moving. They're scanning. Scanning our defenses?" Dae-hyan asked, coming over. "Deeper," she said, pulling up a new set of data. "They are firing focused, long-wave pulses into the planet. Not at cities, Geological sites. Look. She superimposed the scan patterns on a global map. Concentrated beams hit the Yucatan Peninsula, the site of the Cuchulainn crater. Another targeted the Mariana Trench. Another, a deep point in the Arctic ice. They're looking for something, Una whispered. They're not just here to destroy the surface. They're probing the planet itself. Like they're taking an X-ray. A cold feeling, deeper than fear, settled in Dae-Hyun's stomach. This was not a normal invasion. This was an inspection dot in the lab. Jae-won finally let out a breath. Got it. On his screen, a new waveform appeared. It was simpler, smoother. It looked like a slow, steady heartbeat compared to the violent scream of the original. He played the audio. The grinding metal sound was gone. What was left was a low, resonant hum, with a periodic, complex click buried within it. It was still alien, but it was orderly. It felt ancient. Play it again, Su-min said, leaning in. He did. They listened. Click hum. Click click hum. It's a carrier wave, Jae-won said. It's meant to hold information. The click pattern is the data. It's a broadcast meant to be heard over vast distances. And it's coming from Earth. Su-min's eyes widened. From Earth? But we didn't send it. No, we didn't. Jae-won's mind was racing. The Velen fleet. They aren't announcing themselves. They are responding. This whisper, this ghost signal, it's what they heard. It's a beacon. They came because this beacon called them. A beacon for what? Su-min's hand went unconsciously to her sidearm, as if the threat was now in the room with them. I don't know. But the Velen's main message, the targeting data, it's their answer. It's their procedure. They found the beacon, and they are following a set of instructions. Locate, scan, destroy. They are not creative. They are obedient. Jae-won felt a surge of frantic energy. The problem had changed. This was no longer about understanding an alien threat. It was about understanding an alien mistake. We need to show this to Director Lee. We have to find the source of that beacon. If we can turn it off, or explain it, it might change their procedure. Su-min nodded, already moving toward the door. But she stopped and looked back at Jae-won. He was staring at the slow, rhythmic pulse on the screen, his face lit by its glow. He looked exhausted, but his eyes were alive with a fire she hadn't seen before. You did good. Professor, she said, the words feeling strange in her mouth. He looked up, a faint, tired smile on his lips. We're not done yet. The ghost is talking. Now we have to learn its language before the ones who heard it finish their work. They left the lab together, moving quickly down the bright hallway to the command center. The countdown clock on the wall ticked over. 47 hours. The Velen ships continued their deep, searching scans, probing the bones of the Earth for a secret buried in the dark. And now, 2 humans knew the terrible truth. The warning had not been sent to them. They were just living in the house where the alarm was going off. The command center was a storm of low voices and flashing lights when Jae-won and Su-min entered. Director Lee Dae-hyun stood at the central screen, his shoulders tense as he stared at the global map, showing the Velen's deep penetration scans. He turned as they approached, his eyes landing on Jae-won's face, searching for hope. Tell me you have something, Dae-hyun said, his voice flat with exhaustion. Jae-won didn't waste words. He connected his tablet to the main console. The message has 2 parts, Director. The loud part is the Velen. It is their battle plan, their procedure. But underneath it, there is an older signal. A carrier wave with encoded data. It is what they heard. It is a beacon, and it originates from Earth. A heavy silence fell over the immediate area. Choi Yuna, who had been monitoring the scans, spun her chair around. A beacon? From where? What frequency? It's not on a frequency we use, J1 explained. It's buried in a band of background cosmic radiation. It's incredibly faint, but it's constant. It has been broadcasting for a very, very long time. He played the isolated audio, the low, resonant hum with its periodic clicks. In the large room, it sounded like the slow, steady heartbeat of a sleeping giant. Ahayan listened, his face grim. So they are not invaders. They are exterminators. They follow a signal and clean up whatever is at the source. I believe so, J1 said. Their scans prove it. They are not targeting our military. They are looking for the source of this. He pointed at the waveform. They are trying to find what made the beacon. We have to find it first, Sumin stated. It was not a suggestion. Ahayan nodded sharply. Yuna, cross-reference the Veln's exact scan coordinates with every geological and archaeological database we have. Go deep. I want to know what is under that dirt, under that water, that we have never noticed. The work was frantic. J1, while not a data specialist, worked beside Yuna, helping to frame the search in terms of patterns and symbols. The beacon's click code was the key. He began treating it not as a language, but as a symbolic representation. He assigned variables to the click intervals, looking for mathematical constants, chemical notations, anything universal. Hours bled away. The countdown passed 36 hours. Reports from the surface grew worse. Some nations were launching uncoordinated, futile missile strikes. The missiles were swatted from the sky by unseen defenses long before they reached the Veln fleet. The aliens did not retaliate. They simply continued their scans, a behavior more terrifying than any attack. Got something, Yuna said suddenly, her voice thin. She had been comparing the click pattern to known biological data. J1, look at this. On her screen was a visual representation of the click code. Next to it, she brought up a model of a molecule, a double helix, DNA. I was looking for a pattern match. This sequence here, she highlighted a segment of the alien clicks. It doesn't match any known protein or gene perfectly, but the structural rhythm. It's a mirror of base pair sequencing. It's a genomic marker, a signature. J1 felt the air leave his lungs. It's a biological, I am here signal. A tag, but for what? Ahayan asked. Leaning over them, Yuna ran the distorted pattern through the most powerful biocomputing models they had, asking for a closest match analysis. The system churned, seconds feeling like years. Then a result flashed, with a low percentage of confidence, but a horrifying clarity. The closest partial match was not to any existing plant or animal. It was to genetic material recovered from rare, deep earth core samples and fossilized remains in the Cretaceous-Paleogene boundary layer. It was a ghost in the fossil record, a signature of a life form that had been utterly wiped out 66 million years ago. It's not ours, J1 whispered, the truth crashing down on him. The beacon isn't human. It's pre-human. It's from the things that were here before the dinosaurs died. Sumin's hand was a tight fist on the console. The Veln are here for them. The ones who made the beacon. But they're gone. Yuna said, the impact, the extinction. Everything from that era is gone. The Veln don't know that, Ahayan said, his mind connecting the terrible dots. They detect a quarantine beacon from a dangerous species. They follow protocol. They arrive to find a planet teeming with new life, covered in cities, with the beacon still chirping away from deep underground. They must think the dangerous species is not gone. They think it's hiding. Or worse. He looked at J1. What do they think we are? J1 stared at the genetic ghost on the screen. They think we might be them, the descendants of the locked-away threat. Or they think we are irrelevant infestation, covering up their real target. Their panic isn't about us. It's about their failed scan. They can't find the target, but the beacon is active. Their procedure is broken. A new alert flashed on Yuna's console. She pulled it up. The Veln fleet is changing formation. On the main screen, the cloud of red dots shifted. The thorn-like ships moved from a broad holding pattern into a tight, coordinated grid. Their scans intensified, focusing laser-like on the 3 deepest points: Chicxulub, the Mariana Trench, and a subglacial lake in Antarctica. They're moving to the next phase, Su-min said. They've finished looking. Now they're going to dig. Or sterilize, Dae-Hyan corrected grimly. If you can't find the tumor, you burn the whole body to be sure. G1 stood up, a desperate idea forming. We have to talk to them. We have to explain the mistake. How? Dae-Hyan asked, spreading his hands. We've been shouting at them for days. They ignore everything. Because we're using the wrong words. J1's voice rose with passion. We've been sending our languages, our math, on our frequencies. We need to speak to them on their channel. We need to use the beacon. He pointed to the slow, ancient heartbeat still pulsing on his screen. We need to broadcast back on this carrier wave. We have to inject a new message into the old signal. We have to tell them the story of this planet. That the dangerous species is gone. That we are something new. That we are children of the ashes, not the fire. The room was silent, considering the impossible task. Can it be done? Dae-Hyan asked Yuna. She bit her lip, thinking. The beacon's structure. We can analyze its modulation. We could, in theory, mimic the carrier wave and superimpose a packet of our own data. But it would have to be simple. Very simple. A concept, not a conversation. A genetic profile, J1 said, his eyes alight. We send them our DNA, all of it, from every branch of life that evolved after the extinction. We send them the fossil record showing the break. We send them a picture of the asteroid impact. We show them we are not the signal they came for. Dae-Hyan looked at the countdown. 24 hours. He looked at the faces of his team, Yuna's sharp intelligence, Su-min's fierce resolve, J1's desperate hope. Do it, he said, the words final. Use every resource. Build the answer. We have 1 day to correct a 66-million-year-old mistake, or we burn for a crime we didn't commit. The team scattered to their tasks, a new, fragile purpose replacing the numb dread. They were no longer just waiting to die. They were preparing a message in a bottle to be thrown into a cosmic ocean, hoping the monsters on the other side could understand a plea from the children of the ashes. The bunker vibrated with a new kind of tension. Before, it had been the quiet dread of a tomb. Now, it was the frantic energy of a hospital emergency room. They had a diagnosis, and they were racing to prepare the only medicine that might work. Lee Dae-Hyan moved through the chaos, a calm point in the storm. His orders were short and clear. Yuna, you handle the data compilation. Su-min, secure the deep array transmitters. J1, you design the message structure. Nothing leaves this room without my approval. The countdown on the main screen read 22 hours. Choi. Yuna's fingers flew across her console. She pulled from every database they had access to. The Human Genome Project, Global Biodiversity Archives, Paleontological Records. She compiled a compressed history of Earth since the Chicxulub impact. It was a story told in data. The sudden drop in microfossils, the rise of mammals, the branching genetic tree that led to humans. She focused on the break, the clean line of extinction. She wrapped it all in the universal language of mathematics and chemical. Notation. Park Su-min was on secure lines to remote facilities in Greenland and the Australian outback. These were deep space communication arrays, built to talk to probes at the edge of the solar system. Now, they would be used to mimic a ghost. You will receive a carrier wave specification and a data package, she told the confused technicians. You will broadcast it exactly as sent, at full power, on the designated coordinates. This is priority 0. Yes, that overrides everything. The hardest task fell to Kim J1. He had to build the envelope for their message. He sat with the ancient beacon's rhythm, the click-hum, click-click-hum. He needed to understand its grammar. How did it hold information? He realized the clicks were not the data themselves, but markers like punctuation. The spaces between them, the subtle shifts in the hum's tone, it was where the meaning was stored. It's a layered broadcast, he mumbled, more to himself than anyone. The oldest message, the I am here of the lost species, is in the foundational layer. We need to add a new layer on top of it. A correction. He worked with a sound engineer to create a perfect digital copy of the carrier wave. Then, he began the delicate work of embedding Yuna's data package into it. He used the click pattern as a guide, inserting humanity's story into the silent spaces of the old one. It was like writing a new chapter on parchment that already had faded writing, being careful not to erase the original. Hours ticked by. The Velen fleet completed its focused scans. On the command center's main screen, the alien ships now glowed with a new, ominous energy. A collective held breath seemed to suck the air from the bunker. They're powering primary weapons, Yuna reported, her voice barely a whisper. Thorn-like projections on the lead ships began to crackle with a cold violet light. The grid formation they had assumed was clearly a firing solution. It wasn't aimed at cities or armies. It was aimed at the planet itself, at the 3 deep points they had scanned. They're going to perform subsurface sterilization, Daehyun said, his mouth dry. A surgical strike to burn out anything that might be hiding in those depths. The collateral damage, the atmospheric shock, the tectonic upheaval. He didn't finish. They all knew it would be an extinction event for surface life. Message is ready, J1 announced. His eyes were bloodshot, but they shone with a fierce light. On his screen, 2 waveforms were superimposed. One was the old, slow heartbeat of the beacon. The other was a more complex, busier signal woven into it. We are sending our story on their station. Transmitters are aligned and ready, Sumin confirmed, her hand hovering over a secure terminal. Greenland and Australia standing by. Daehyun looked at the main screen. The violet light on the Velen ships was intensifying, building toward a peak. The countdown read 18 hours, but the attack would come in minutes. Do it, Daehyun said. Broadcast the message. On repeat. Full power. Sumin entered the command dot in a bunker in Greenland and a dusty facility in the Australian desert. Massive dishes tilted to a precise point in space near Jupiter. They did not send a human signal. They sent a ghost, now given a new voice. The click-hum of the ancient beacon pulsed out into the void, but now, within its rhythm, was the compressed saga of Earth's rebirth. The genetic fingerprint of humanity, the maps of continental drift after the asteroid, the timeline showing millions of years of silence from the old threat dot in the command center. They could only watch and wait. The transmission was sent. There was no way to know if it was being received or understood. For several long minutes, nothing changed. The Velen weapons continued to charge. The violet light became almost blinding on the sensors. Then, Yuna saw it first. The lead ship, its weapon signature is fluctuating. On the screen, the intense violet glow on the largest Thorn ship flickered. It dimmed, then brightened, then dimmed again. Across the grid formation, other ships began to show similar instability. The perfect, terrifying synchronization was breaking. They've received it, J1 breathed. It's causing a conflict in their systems, Una said, analyzing the data stream. Their protocol is clear. Destroy source of beacon. But our message is saying, we are not the source. The source is gone. We are new life. Their logic is fighting itself. The Velen fleet fell into apparent disarray. Some ships powered down their weapons entirely. Others kept them charged but aimless. A few small vessels even broke formation, moving erratically. It was not a retreat. It was a system failure. It was panic. They don't know what to do, Su Min said, a hard smile touching her lips. We broke their script. But De Haiyan watched, his heart not yet lifting. The fleet was still there. The weapons, while not firing, were still largely powered. The conflict could resolve itself in a terrible way. Don't stop the broadcast, he ordered. Keep repeating it. Over and over. Hammer the point home. For 6 hours, they watched the silent, confused dance of the alien armada. The countdown clock became meaningless. Time was measured in the pulse of their repeating message and the erratic flicker of distant alien weapons. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the activity ceased. Every Velen ship, in perfect unison, powered down its weapon systems. The violet light vanished. For a moment, they were just dark shapes against the stars again. Then they moved. As one, the entire fleet turned. Their sharp prows pointed away from the sun, away from Earth, with a smooth, silent acceleration that defied physics. The cloud of Thong ships sped back toward Jupiter. They're leaving, Una said. The words sounding impossible. The fleet reached the gas giant and, without slowing, plunged into the same point of twisted space from which they had emerged. One by one, the red dots on the screen vanished. In less than 10 minutes, space near Jupiter was empty. Quiet. The silence in the bunker was absolute. It was the silence of a pressure valve releasing, of a weight too heavy to comprehend suddenly being lifted. No one cheered. No one cried. They simply stared at the empty starfield on the main screen, unable to process the void where their doom had been. Lee Dae-Hyan slowly sank into his chair, his body feeling weak. Kim Jae-won removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes, his hands trembling. Park Soo-min let out a long, slow breath she felt she had been holding for days. Choi Yuna just watched her sensors, confirming again and again that the Velen were truly gone. They had won. Not with weapons, but with a story. Not by being strong, but by proving they were not the monster the universe feared. But as the shock began to fade, a colder, deeper realization settled in the room. They had not been the target. They had been living on a marked grave. And the thing that had marked it, the thing that had made the Velen panic, was still a mystery, buried deep in the rock and ice of their own world. They were safe, but they were no longer at home in the same way. The silence after the storm was not peaceful. It was deep and heavy, like the air after a landslide. In the bunker, the screens showed empty space where the Velen fleet had been. The countdown clock had been switched off, leaving a blank, dark rectangle on the wall. For a long time, no one spoke. The relief was too big, too complicated to fit into words. Lee Dae-Hyan finally stood up from his chair. His body ached. He looked at his team. Kim Jae-won sat perfectly still, staring at his hands. Park Soo-min leaned against a console, her head bowed. Choi Yuna was methodically shutting down her analysis programs, her movements precise but slow, as if she was moving through water. Send the all-clear to the surface, Dae-Hyan said, his voice raspy. Tell them the immediate threat has passed. The fleet has withdrawn. He didn't say the word victory. It didn't feel like one. The message went out. Across the world, the news spread in waves of disbelief, then hysterical joy, then a shaky, tearful quiet. People spilled into the streets, not to run, but to look up at a sky that was no longer a target. They hugged strangers. They cried. But the celebration had a strange, hollow sound to it. Everyone had seen the same news. Everyone knew the aliens had left not because they were beaten, but because they were confused. Down in the bunker, the team was ordered to rest. They went to small, plain rooms with narrow beds. J1 lay down, but did not sleep. He could still hear the click-hum of the beacon in his mind. Su-Min cleaned her sidearm, took it apart, and put it back together 3 times, just for something to do with her hands. Yuna slept for 2 hours and woke from a dream of deep, shifting shadows under the ice dot. The next day, they gathered again in the command center. It felt different. The emergency was over, but the mission had changed. "We have to debrief," Daehyun said. "We have to understand what happened, fully, before the politicians and the generals try to make up their own stories." They went over everything. Yuna presented the data on the Velen scans and the beacon source. It was buried, she confirmed, in a deep, stable layer of the Earth's crust, likely activated by slow geological shifts. It was a piece of technology so old it was more like geology itself. It had been calling out for millions of years. J1 explained his theory. The Velen are not a race of conquerors. They are janitors or surgeons. They follow a simple rule. If you detect a specific danger beacon, you go and remove the danger. They found the beacon here. They expected to find the makers of the beacon. Instead, they found us. We were an anomaly, a new, unknown variable covering their target. Our message worked because it wasn't a plea. It was a data point. It proved we were a separate entity. We broke their logic chain. Su-Min listened, her arms crossed. So they left because we weren't on their list, not because they decided to sire us. Exactly, J1 said. We were a procedural error. They panicked because their instructions didn't cover this scenario. A week later, they were on the surface. The world was trying to return to normal, but normal was gone. The sky felt watched. Governments were talking about building new defenses, digging up the beacon, forming a united Earth fleet. Daehyun, Yuna, Su-Min, and J1 stood on a balcony at the Korea Astronomy and Space Science Institute, looking at the real sky, not a screen. The sun was setting. What happens now? Yuna asked. Do we try to dig it up? The beacon? Too risky, Daehyun said, shaking his head. We don't know what it is, really. Digging might be what sets it off, or cause something worse. For now, we monitor it. We learn to read its signal completely. I'll work on that, J1 said quietly. He had been offered many jobs, great honors. He had asked only for a lab and continued access to the data. His work had just begun. The Ghost had more to say. Su-Min was being promoted. They wanted her to help build a new global security division, one based on understanding, not just shooting. She looked at J1. We'll need people who can listen, she said. It was an offer and a thank you. He nodded. They stood in silence for a while, each alone with their thoughts. They had saved the world, but the world they saved was now a different place. It was a place with a secret buried in its bones. It was a place that had been labeled dangerous in a cosmic catalog. J1 thought of the Velen, their cold, efficient panic. He thought of the ancient thing that had made the beacon, a thing so threatening that a galaxy had a standing order for its destruction. That thing was gone, dust in rock. But its warning sign remained. Humanity was not the target. They were the unexpected survivors, living in a house that still had someone else's alarm system wired into the walls. The universe knew their address now, and it was not a friendly notation. Daehyun put a hand on the railing. We got a second chance, he said. Not because we were strong, But because we were clever and we told the truth, he looked at each of them. We have to remember that. Strength will not be what protects us out there. Understanding will. The stars began to appear one by one. They were the same stars as before, but they did not look the same. They were no longer just pretty lights. They were windows. And behind some of them, there were things that followed rules, that cleaned up dangers, that could panic. Humanity had stepped onto a stage it never knew existed. The play was older than their species, and they did not know the lines. But they had learned one thing. They had to be very, very careful about what signals they sent and what stories they told. For in the vast, silent dark, someone was always listening. And not everyone who listened did so with kindness.